Hey, hi, hello, it's Tokencarnie, and you're watching Professionally Unprofessional. Oh wait, I have to burp. Because it's not a thing if I don't do it. It's just how it works. Welcome back to Professionally Unprofessional, where we teach you that there's more to life than just your typical 9 to 5. Today starts our first interview series, and we are going to be talking to a really close friend from college, Brittney Tellekamp. I want to give a bit of a warning that Brittney's story does involve bladder cancer and medical terminology. She is by no way a medical professional, and that is listed on her website as well. So this is just her personal story and everything that she herself has gone through, but it's something that's important to share because cancer can change her life. Brittney took her situation and ended up making something really creative and helpful out of what happened to her. This is a situation that no one would wish on anyone else, but she was able to take that and become a spokesperson and a beacon of hope for other people going through the same situation. This is going to be the first part of her interview series where we talk to her and figure out what does she mean when she says no bladder don't matter. Let's go. Hi, welcome. I'm going to wing it because you are the first interview person that I've had on my channel. I know, it's really exciting. Why don't you introduce yourself?
So I am Brittney Tellekamp. I run the platform No Bladder Don't Matter, and I'm a writer for bladdercancer.net.
That's all you want to say? You don't have anything else to introduce to these people that have no idea who you are?
Let's see, I have a husband. We've been married 2 years. Been together for 7 this summer. I have a corgi named Finn. I work for Georgia State Parks here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I guess the big thing is I am a bladder cancer fighter, survivor, warrior, all the names, stage 4 metastatic urothelial bladder cancer.
So can you explain what that is?
So urothelial, big word, very basic bladder cancer. So I had a tumor in my bladder the actual size of a grapefruit. It was a 10 by 13 by 9 centimeter mass. It had gone into the bladder wall, and I had no idea that was going on. I started having severe left hip pain, and I finally went to the ER, and they did an x-ray, and they said, oh. And they did a couple more tests, and they were like, hey, you have a large tumor in your bladder. We think you have bladder cancer. And about 2 weeks later, they took my bladder out and a whole bunch of other stuff. And now I have a urostomy, which in layman terms is the P version of an ostomy. Most people know what a colostomy is, which is poop, but I have a P one.
And just for frame of reference, you are how tall?
I am 5'1" if I sit up straight.
So grapefruit's huge, but you're 5'1", yes. So that's even massive.
It was very big. It was very big, and it's even, when you have a big surgery like that, your surgeon will, he dictates what he did in surgery, and you can get a whole transcription of that, and he literally said how difficult the surgery was and how little room he had to work with, because I'm just a petite person on top of having what was going on inside of me.
Now, you and I have known each other since college, so it's been a long time. But for the people that don't know you, because I've seen this journey from start to finish, I've been updated on everything. I've been there, not physically, but I mean, I was at your wedding and everything. So I've seen the whole journey. How would you say your life has changed since realizing you had the pain, going to the diagnosis, and then now going through everything?
So it's crazy, and it's a question that a lot of people who go through bladder cancer get. They're like, oh, now that you're going through it, now that you've come out the other side of it, like, have your views changed? Has your life changed? It's something we get asked a lot, and it's a two-sided...
We being you as a person, or we, you and your hubby?
Both. Me as a person, and people forget that your significant other or your caregiver, which whoever's supporting you at home, this affects them too. It's not just me and my bubble and he goes about his everyday life like there's nothing wrong with me. I mean, he went through it for 6 months with me. I mean, he basically had to live with, me going to the ER going, hey, I kind of hurt, to someone, pulling a curtain saying, hey, your wife has stage 4 cancer, which stage 4, that's as bad as it gets. That's you might die. So he basically got told, hey, your wife might die. And then I almost did. You start to look at your life pre-diagnosis and post-diagnosis. It's like if you had a novel, like here's part 1, here's part 2, like here's my whole life, being a dancer, being a young professional, all these things that I did. And on July 25th, 2019, it stopped. And I had to essentially become a new person. Some days I'm not thankful for the experience, but it has definitely aged me and matured me in a way that I didn't think it would. You definitely learn the small stuff is small stuff. Your give a hell level, roll low. Less things frustrate you the way they used to. So I'm, that part's kind of cool, kind of nice new perspective to have, but also at the same time, I'll never have my own biological children. I have an ostomy bag attached to my body for the rest of my life. There's currently no other option out there for me. I wasn't a candidate for the other types of diversions you can get if you have bladder removal surgery. So that knocked, my confidence as a woman. I have a pee bag attached to my stomach. That's not attractive. It doesn't make me feel sexy. I will be in cancer treatment for the rest of my life because I am stage 4. I will never be cured. I like to think metaphorically, one day someone's going to find the cure for cancer, but I don't think it's going to be the cure for people like me who are so far along with it. Our ultimate goal is keep it under the water. Don't rock the boat. As long as you can keep walking and going about your life, that's what we do. So I never get to be a survivor and say I had cancer. So this is, a large part of my identity now, whereas I used to identify myself like, hey, I'm Brittney, I'm a wife, a corgi mom, I like to dance, I like to do these things. It's like when I introduce people, because most people, there's a couple physical things that you can see on me now, and they're like, huh, and I'm like, yeah, I have bladder cancer. It's a big part of who I am now. My story, and I'm actually a case study at Emory University because...
Oh, she's fancy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a title I love having. So the big thing I started experiencing about this time, honestly, last year, which is so crazy to think. It's not even been a year yet. So about this time last year, if you look at pictures of me, my hair was getting a little bit thinner. Had no clue about that because, if you have thick curly hair, your hair falls out all the time. I shed constantly. But I actually just saw a picture on my Facebook memories yesterday where I was walking the Atlanta Beltline with my dog, and you can actually see a bald spot in the back of my head. I had no idea. So obviously there was some hair loss. I was feeling a lot of fatigue, which I just attributed to work because work was absolutely crazy this time last year. So from that point to July 25th, I was so tired. I was taking more time off of work, and I knew something was off, but I was also not in the right state of mind to understand what was going on. And then the hip pain started. And as you know, when you've performed and you've done gymnastics and dance your whole life, you hurt. You just live in a
constantly. It's just a constant state of fatigue. You got bruises for everything. You don't know where they came from. Everything hurts.
My knees have hurt since I was 12. I'm just I hurt in general a lot. Mm-hmm. So I was I work a desk job. I probably need to walk more, do yoga, and
not to mention people like us have a way higher pain threshold to begin with.
Exactly.
So for us to go to someone and say, hey, we're in pain because of this reason, it's severe because normally we don't feel it.
Yeah, and it was it just got to the point, I was inhaling Advil, ice packs, heat packs. Nothing was helping. And I honestly, I couldn't say if it was a higher power, if it was just a soul thing. I woke up at 2:00 in the morning on July 25th in pain and immediately said, I'm going to the ER. I'm very much like, rub some dirt in it, you'll be fine, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. And I don't know what told me something's wrong. But I just zombie mode went, got dressed, got a big glass of water. I didn't even wake my husband up. I literally just pushed his shoulder and said, hey babe, I'm going to the ER, and got in my car and drove myself to the ER.
You drove yourself?
Yes. Which, granted, the first hospital I ended up at is 5 minutes from my house. It's maybe 8 miles away. It's right up the road. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to the ER. About the time I had checked myself in and sat down, my phone rings. He's like, did you just leave? I was like, yeah. He's like, did you just tell me you're going to the ER? I was like, yeah, I'm here right now. He's like, what the hell?
To you, it's absolutely nothing. To him, he's like, oh, so it's 2 a.m. My wife is in the ER and I know nothing about it. Cool.
He goes, do I need to come up there? I was like, no, I'll call you when we find out what's going on. Take you back. They want to take your temperature and your blood pressure. And she just casually, she's just looking at me, looking at the screen. She's like, do you have a history of having a high heart rate? And I was like, I don't think so. She goes, okay. Well, we want to do an EKG. Go sit down and we'll call you back. So they pull you back for EKG, which is where they put all the probes on your chest and they watch, your heart rate and everything. And so they do the EKG, which takes maybe a minute and a half. Okay, go back out in the waiting room. And so my husband calls and he's like, hey, I just, I fed and walked the dog. I'm going to come up there. I was like, okay. I said an EKG. And as I'm on the phone with him, there's this guy nurse running at me with a wheelchair. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? He's like, can you come sit on here? We're going to take you back. And I'm
just trying not to panic at all. They're all panicked. You have no idea what's going on.
I was just like, okay. I'm like, my hip hurts. I'm tired. It's 3:00 in the morning. I was like, Justin, they're taking me back in the ER. I don't know what's going on. And he's like, okay, I'll be there in a minute. They bring me in and it's a quad. So they've got basically 4 beds curtained off. And there's some lady, I'll never forget this. In my loopy brain, a lady was going to be taken back for an MRI. And she's like, oh, do I need to take my nipple rings off? Because you can't have metal on you on an MRI. And then so she's talking about that, and there was a guy pooping in a bedpan somewhere next to me, and I was just like, what the hell is going on?
It's 2 a.m. You might as well be at a Waffle House at this point. It's just a mess all around.
It was a while, and Justin gets there, and then he got there just after they'd done an x-ray, which is so nice now. They wheel a machine in, and they do it. And at this point, I'm still in a good amount of pain and I feel like absolute hell. And at this point, my husband, now that he's there, he's like, can y'all give her some Tylenol? She's not feeling good.
Just something.
Something. And they're like, and this is when I was kind of dawning, they knew something was up. Because obviously they saw it on the x-ray. Because they're like,
kind of hard to miss a giant grapefruit on your bladder.
And they're like, no, we gotta check on some things. We want to take some blood. We want to do this. So obviously, they have seen something. They drew blood, which hurt incredibly, which is just, that came from, I was dehydrated and anemic. And once they did my
Did you know you were anemic prior to this incident?
No.
Okay.
No.
You
really
had a fun time all around.
Yeah, what kicked it all off, obviously, when they do a blood panel, like I said, if they had done it at my gynecologist visit, they saw to give you an idea of how sick I was. So for a normal person, your hemoglobin, your red blood count should be somewhere between, I would say really your level should be between 12 and 16. Maybe for some people and children, it can go to 10. At 6, you should be hooked up to blood transfusions. Like at 6, you're in the hospital. You're dangerously sick. I was hovering at 4.
Oh, okay.
They did not understand how. They're like, you drove yourself here, you walked in here, like I should have been on the floor. And then your white count for a healthy person, if you're not fighting a cold, at the low end could be like 6, and when it gets up around 10, that's when you probably have like a severe infection, like mono, strep, like something they need to treat it now. And mine, and that's in the thousands, so it's usually 6,000 to 10,000. Mine was at 37.
1,000 or 37 total?
37,000. So you should be between 6 and 10,000. I was at 37,000. That was like, they were like, oh hell no, we need IVs in you, we need to do all this stuff. And
that was big old red flags from them.
Yeah, and I go really in depth. I do have like a whole like my story about this hospital on my blog, but probably more than surgery, all the other pain and like scary moments that happened with my diagnosis, the scariest thing and the thing that's like burned in my memory, you know, they were like, you need 2 IVs because they needed 1 IV for blood and they needed 1 IV for like fluids, antibiotics. They can't run it through the same one. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to get 2 IVs. I'm ready. I got it. But I'm also like in a lot of pain and I'm hyperventilating, like freaking the hell out because they had already told me that they had found a mass. They hadn't told me anything else yet. And, you know, they're trying to get an IV in, which if you've ever had an IV, it hurts. There's nothing about that's pleasant. When you're anemic and you're dehydrated, you know, your veins go from being like nice and plump and open, oh, we can put a needle in, to like, mine were just gone. They were flat. And so they were having to go up into some major veins in my forearm.
Nope. Big hard pass there.
It took, like, she went and she went and she went and she couldn't find one. And the whole time I'm screaming. I'm probably freaking out everyone else who was, you know, curtained off with me. I'm screaming. My husband about throws up. He walks out like he can't handle it. I know now, and if anyone's watching this, you can tell nurses and doctors to stop. I didn't know. Like, you just, you know, you trust nurses and doctors. Like, they're trying to help you. And I knew they were trying to help me. But I know now that I could have said, no, you're going to give me a minute. Like, you can patient advocate for yourself. And thankfully, you know, once they got the blood transfused and some hydration in me, I started to feel better, but they couldn't give me pain medication. They probably didn't give me pain medication until the next day.
So you were dealing with this for a full day before you had any...
So I got into the ER. I got taken back to a room at 4. The nurse, I'll never forget her name, Dr. Patel, walked in and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, you know, we found a mass. You know this. I said, uh-huh. She's like, we think it's cervical cancer. I'll give you a minute. She patted my shoulder and walked out. And I just remember, like, slow motion, turning to my husband and just losing my mind. Like, his eyes were so big and we both just looked at each other and just, have someone look you in the eye and say, you have cancer. Like, that word is just...
Well, at your age, too, because you were how old?
Yeah. 28.
Okay, so you're 28, and then another thing you and I have talked about previously with this is that normal, with air quotes here, the normal age of people that are diagnosed with the same type of cancer you have is what?
Old white men. 73 is the median age for diagnosis. And they typically expect for you to have smoked your whole life or worked around chemicals. Yeah. Never been exposed to hard chemicals. I've never smoked. Didn't fit the age criteria. So
you're sitting in there, you turn to your husband, you both start crying. What is the first thought that went through your brain? Like, what did you have cancer, now what?
I looked at him, and I said, I don't want to die.
That's a valid thought.
But I mean, that's literally the first thing I thought, because you think about it, you know, when you picture cancer, you don't really see, there's so few people who come out of it and live a fully normal life. Like, it's very hard to beat cancer. And my experience with it, you know, my mom had thyroid, my aunt has had breast cancer. I have known and watched people die from cancer. So I mean, I was like, I'm gonna die. I mean, they just gave me a death sentence today. I'm gonna die. Like, that's all I could think of was like, I don't want to die. And I'm sitting there looking at my husband, and I'm like, I'm not gonna cry.
It's okay if you do. This is a very deep thing.
New mascara. But
I know you. It's not new mascara.
Actually, it is. It came from Ulta today.
Oh, look at her.
Yeah. It's like, all I could think was like, there's so much more I want to do. I'm not done yet. Like, no, this doesn't make sense. I'm too young. No. Like, I just kept thinking, my brain was just like, my brain just kept saying, no. Like, it didn't feel real. It felt like a movie. I'm like, okay, when are they going to come out from the side and go, ha, we're kidding. I'm like, it did not feel real. Like, and that whole experience, especially that first day, I've talked to my husband about it. I've talked to my mom about it. I'm like, what do you guys remember from that day, that first 24 hours? And they're like, it's the closest I've ever come to feeling like an out-of-body experience. Because when I think of that memory, I'm looking down at myself in that hospital bed. Like, my memory is not me laying there looking at everyone. Like, the memory is looking at myself. Like, I just disassociated hardcore. So basically, and it scared the crap out of my doctors and my husband, because I maybe for 5 minutes like cried and sobbed, and then that switch flipped and I disassociated and I got like scary calm. They're wanting you to make decisions. They want you to sign stuff, and you know, they're asking me all these questions, and I'm just
for updates. They want her to sign things. She's been in bed. She got there at 2 a.m. She has not had any pain medication yet, and they just told her that she has cancer. She is not in a good frame of mind to sign paperwork.
I had already left my first hospital. I didn't tell anyone until I was going to Emory, because it took a week to find out what cancer I had. There was a whole bunch of other crazy stuff happening between finding an oncologist and this oncologist telling my mom, like, he slipped her a Post-it note with his personal number, and he said, I'm going to call you in 10 minutes. This is the number to look for. Make sure you answer it. And the reason he did that was for professional reasons. He couldn't say what he needed to say in the room, which was, you need to get her out of this hospital. Here's this oncologist at Emory, because if she stays here, she's going to die. Well, if you ever go through, you know, I don't wish this on anyone, but if you ever go through like a weird diagnosis, if you can get to a teaching hospital, your world will be changed, because you've got people there who are going to school and are studying and are hungry to learn. And that was really where my care turned around, where we got a plan, where, you know, I checked into Emory on August 2nd, which is the funniest thing to me, because if you remember at the beginning of this conversation, my ultrasound from my gynecologist was supposed to be on August 2nd. And that's when I checked myself into Emory. Like, that's just like such a weird...
Just a full circle weird thing. So that's where we're going to stop this week. It's going to be a multi-episode series, so make sure that you tune in every Friday to see more of what's going on and get more of Brittney's story. If you want to hear the whole thing, there's going to be 2 episodes on our podcast, which are linked in the description box below. You'll be able to listen to both of those and understand fully what Brittney did and where this No Bladder Don't Matter idea came from. If you would like to support her company, and their merch, you can also find that on nobladderdon'tmatter.com, as well as following Brittney on Instagram and Facebook to see more. of the No Bladder Don't Matter community. Don't forget, if you like what we do here, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Redhead Runaway, where we post behind the scenes footage, extended interviews, and extra bonuses, so you'll be able to follow along with us and get exclusive Runaway bonuses. Don't forget to check that down below, or go to patreon.com/Redhead Runaway. That's it for this week's Professionally Unprofessional. Don't forget to check out our podcast coming out on Wednesday, and I'll see you back here next Friday for the next episode in this series. Okay, bye! Hey, hi, hello. It's Tokencarnie. I just punched myself. In this week's episode, things are going to be split a little differently. No, they're not. I'm lying to you. It's fine. Here's the real one. Welcome back to Professionally Unprofessional, a series where we teach you words and stuff.